Hello everyone, I hope you all are doing good. This video is the second part of the first chapter from Laxmikanth's Indian Polity book, Historical Background. If you haven't watched the first part, I'm attaching the link over here and also in the description. Do watch it for better understanding and to ensure continuity. So without any further delay, let's start.
Indian Councils Act of 1909. This act is also known as Morley-Minto Reforms because Lord Morley was the then Secretary of State for India and Lord Minto was the then Viceroy of India. The features of this act were 1. It considerably increased the size of the legislative councils, both central and provincial. The number of members in the Central Legislative Council was raised from 16 to 60. The number of members in the Provincial Legislative Councils was not uniform. 2. It retained official majority in the Central Legislative Council but allowed the Provincial Legislative Councils to have non-official majority. 3. It enlarged the deliberative functions of the legislative councils at both the levels. For example, members were allowed to ask supplementary questions, move resolutions on the budget, and so on. 4. It provided for the first time for the association of Indians with the executive councils of the Viceroy and governors. Satyendra Prasad Sinha became the first Indian to join the Viceroy's Executive Council. He was appointed as the law member. 5. It introduced a system of communal representation for Muslims by accepting the concept of separate electorate. Under this, the Muslim members were to be elected only by Muslim voters. Thus, the act legalized communalism and Lord Minto came to be known as the father of communal electorate. 6. It also provided for the separate representation of presidency corporations, chambers of commerce, universities and zamindars. Government of India Act of 1919. The Government of India Act of 1919 was thus enacted, which came into force in 1921. This act is also known as Montagu-Chelmsford Reforms because Montagu was the Secretary of State for India and Lord Chelmsford was the Viceroy of India. The features of this act were 1. It relaxed the central control over the provinces by demarcating and separating the central and provincial subjects. The central and provincial legislatures were authorized to make laws on their respective list of subjects. However, the structure of government continued to be centralized and unitary. 2. It further divided the provincial subjects into two parts, transferred and reserved. The transferred subjects were to be administered by the governor with the aid of ministers responsible to the Legislative Council. The reserved subjects, on the other hand, were to be administered by the governor and his Executive Council without being responsible to the Legislative Council. This dual scheme of governance was known as diarchy, a term derived from the Greek word. However, this experiment was largely unsuccessful. 3. It introduced for the first time bicameralism and direct elections in the country. Thus, the Indian Legislative Council was replaced by a bicameral legislature consisting of an upper house and a lower house. The majority of members of both the houses were chosen by direct election. 4. It required that the 3 of the 6 members of the Viceroy's Executive Council were to be Indian. 5. It extended the principle of communal representation by providing separate electorates for Sikhs, Indian Christians, Anglo-Indians, and Europeans. 6. It granted franchisee to a limited number of people on the basis of property, tax, or education. 7. It created a new office of the High Commissioner for India in London and transferred to him some of the functions hitherto performed by the Secretary of State for India. 8. It provided for the establishment of a Public Service Commission. Hence, a Central Public Service Commission was set up in 1926 for recruiting civil servants. 9. It separated for the first time provincial budgets from the central budget and authorized the provincial legislatures to enact their budgets. 10. It provided for the appointment of a statutory commission to inquire into and report on its working after 10 years of its coming into force. Simon Commission. As per the Government of India Act of 1919, a statutory commission should inquire and report on its working after 10 years. But the British government announced the appointment of a 7-member statutory commission under the chairmanship of Sir John Simon to report on the condition of India under its new condition in November 1927 itself, that is 2 years before the schedule. All the members of the commission were British and hence all the parties boycotted the commission. The commission submitted its report in 1930 and recommended the abolition of diarchy, extension of responsible government in the provinces, establishment of a federation of British India and princely states, continuation of communal electorate, and so on. To consider the proposals of the commission, the British government convened 3 roundtable conferences of the representatives of the British government, British India and Indian princely states. On the basis of these discussions, a white paper on constitutional reforms was prepared and submitted for the consideration of the Joint Select Committee of the British Parliament. The recommendations of this committee were incorporated with certain changes in the next Government of India Act of 1935. Communal Award. In August 1932, Ramsay MacDonald, the British Prime Minister, announced a scheme of representation of the minorities, which came to be known as the Communal Award. The award not only continued separate electorates for the Muslims, Sikhs, Indian Christians, Anglo-Indians, and Europeans, but also extended it to the depressed classes, that is, scheduled castes. Gandhiji was distressed over this extension of the principle of communal representation to the depressed classes and undertook fast unto death in Eravada jail in Pune to get the award modified. At last, there was an agreement between the leaders of the Congress and the depressed classes. The agreement, known as Pune Pact, retained the Hindu joint electorate and gave reserved seats to the depressed classes. Government of India Act of 1935. The Act marked a second milestone towards a completely responsible government in India. It was a lengthy and detailed document having 321 sections and 10 schedules. The features of this Act were: 1. It provided for the establishment of an All India Federation consisting of provinces and princely states as units. The Act divided the powers between the centre and units in terms of 3 lists: Federal List, Provincial List, and the Concurrent List. Residuary powers were given to the Viceroy. However, the Federation never came into being as the princely states did not join it. 2. It abolished diarchy in the provinces and introduced provincial autonomy in its place. The provinces were allowed to act as autonomous units of administration in their defined spheres. Moreover, the Act introduced responsible governments in provinces, that is, the governor was required to act with the advice of ministers responsible to the provincial legislature. This came into effect in 1937 and was discontinued in 1939. 3. It provided for the adoption of diarchy at the center. Consequently, the federal subjects were divided into reserved subjects and transferred subjects. However, this provision of the Act did not come into operation at all. 4. It introduced bicameralism in 6 out of 11 provinces. Thus, the legislatures of Bengal, Bombay, Madras, Bihar, Assam, and the United Provinces were made bicameral, consisting of a legislative council, that is upper house, and a legislative assembly, that is lower house. However, many restrictions were placed on them. 5. It further extended the principle of communal representation by providing separate electorates for depressed classes, that is scheduled castes, women and labourers. 6. It abolished the Council of India established by the Government of India Act of 1858. The Secretary of State for India was provided with a team of advisors. 7. It extended franchise. About 10% of the total population got the voting right. 8. It provided for the establishment of a Reserve Bank of India to control the currency and credit of the country. 9. It provided for the establishment of not only a Federal Public Service Commission but also a Provincial Public Service Commission and Joint Public Service Commission for 2 or more provinces. 10. It provided for the establishment of a federal court which was set up in 1937. Indian Independence Act of 1947. On February 20, 1947, the British Prime Minister Clement Attlee declared that the British rule in India would end by June 30, 1948, after which the power would be transferred to responsible Indian hands. This announcement was followed by the agitation by the Muslim League demanding partition of the country. Again on June 3, 1947, the British government made it clear that any constitution framed by the Constituent Assembly of India, which was formed in 1946, cannot apply to those parts of the country which were unwilling to accept it. On the same day, that is on June 3, 1947, Lord Mountbatten, the Viceroy of India, put forth the partition plan, known as the Mountbatten Plan. The plan was accepted by the Congress and the Muslim League. Immediate effect was given to the plan by enacting the Indian Independence Act of 1947. The features of this act were: 1. It ended the British rule in India and declared India as an independent and sovereign state from August 15, 1947. 2. It provided for the partition of India and creation of 2 independent dominions of India and Pakistan with the right to secede from the British Commonwealth. 3. It abolished the office of Viceroy and provided for each dominion a Governor General who was to be appointed by the British King on the advice of the Dominion Cabinet. His Majesty's government in Britain was to have no responsibility with respect to the government of India or Pakistan. 4. It empowered the constituent assemblies of the 2 dominions to frame and adopt any constitution for their respective nations and to repeal any act of the British Parliament including the Independence Act itself. 5. It empowered the constituent assemblies of both the dominions to legislate for their respective territories till the new constitutions were drafted and enforced. No act of the British Parliament passed after August 15, 1947 was to extend to either of the new dominions unless it was extended thereto by a law of the legislature of the dominion. 6. It abolished the office of Secretary of State for India and transferred his functions to the Secretary of State for Commonwealth Affairs. 7. It proclaimed the lapse of British paramountcy over the Indian princely states and treaty relations with tribal areas from August 15, 1947. 8. It granted freedom to the Indian princely states either to join the Dominion of India or Dominion of Pakistan or to remain independent. 9. It provided for the governance of each of the dominions and the provinces by the Government of India Act of 1935 till the new constitutions were framed. The dominions were, however, authorized to make modifications in the Act. 10. It deprived the British monarch of his rights to veto bills or ask for reservation of certain bills for his approval. But this right was reserved for the Governor General. The Governor General would have full power to assent to any bill in the name of His Majesty. 11. It designated the Governor General of India and the provincial governors as constitutional heads of the states. They were made to act on the advice of the respective Council of Ministers in all matters. 12. It dropped the title of Emperor of India from the royal titles of the King of England. 13. It discontinued the appointment to civil services and reservation of posts by the Secretary of State for India. The members of the civil services appointed before August 15, 1947 would continue to enjoy all benefits that they were entitled to till that time. At the stroke of midnight of 14 to 15 August 1947, the British rule came to an end and power was transferred to the two new independent dominions of India and Pakistan. Lord Mountbatten became the first Governor General of the new Dominion of India. He swore in Jawaharlal Nehru as the first Prime Minister of independent India. The Constituent Assembly of India, formed in 1946, became the Parliament of the Indian Dominion. Let's have a look at the interim government's members and their respective portfolios.
Jawaharlal Nehru, Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel, Dr. Rajendra Prasad, Dr. John Mathai, Jagjeevan Ram, Sardar Baldev Singh, C.H. Baba, Liaquat Ali Khan, Abdur Rab Nishtar, Asaf Ali, C. Rajagopalachari, I. Chundrigar, Ghaznafar Ali Khan, Jogindernath Mandal.
Let's see the first cabinet members of Free India.
Jawaharlal Nehru, Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel, Dr. Rajendra Prasad,
Maulana Abul Kalam Azad, Dr. John Mathai, R.K. Shanmugam Chetty, Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, Jagjeevan Ram, Sardar Baldev Singh, Rajkumari Amrit Kaur, C.H. Baba, Rafi Ahmed Kidwai, Dr. Shyama Prasad Mukherjee, V. N. Gadgil. Thanks for watching. If you like this video, please hit the like button, put down your valuable comments, share and subscribe Dumbfound360. Your support will encourage us to do more videos in the future. Until then, it's KK signing off.